Welcome, esteemed viewers and scholars. The objective of this content is to deliver a rigorous, scholarly analysis of alliance politics, coercive diplomacy, and national security trade-offs from the combined perspectives of U.S. ROK international relations, international criminal psychology, and political offense psychology. This text is structured strictly as an educational and theoretical simulation for lecture and research purposes. It contains no intent to target, disparage, or malign any specific individual, corporate entity, or political administration, but rather serves to illustrate how major powers leverage multidimensional diplomatic, economic, and strategic pressure during heightened bilateral friction. If you find this expert analysis insightful, please remember to subscribe, share, and like to support the production of high-caliber academic content. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. An unprecedented diplomatic stalemate in the history of the U.S. ROK alliance is fast becoming a reality. Despite repeated warnings from the U.S. Department of State escalating controversies surrounding restrictions on freedom of expression within South Korea, alongside alleged discriminatory sanctions targeting American enterprises, such as Coupang, have driven American patience to its absolute limit. Compounding this precarious situation, the effective detention of a former U.S. ambassador at large for global criminal justice from the Trump administration in South Korea has prompted the White House to consider immediate retaliatory measures grounded in national protection and strict diplomatic reciprocity. What specific leverage can the world's leading superpower wield against its key treaty ally? From diplomatic isolation and targeted economic repercussions against major domestic platforms, to systemic security realignments that strike at the very foundation of the alliance, we present a phased analysis of potential U.S. retaliatory scenarios evaluated through the lenses of international political theory and diplomatic practice. Phase 1, immediate diplomatic and reciprocal pressures. In accordance with established diplomatic norms and the foundational principle of international reciprocity, initial retaliatory measures are designed to signal deep displeasure, diminish international prestige, and induce political isolation, without immediately severing structural ties. 1. Escalation of travel advisories. The U.S. Department of State may formally elevate its official travel advisory for South Korea, citing systemic risks within the host nation's judicial framework, specifically risks concerning the infringement on freedom of speech and potential arbitrary detention of foreign citizens. Such an elevation serves as an explicit warning. Beyond impacting bilateral tourism, this classification inflicts significant reputational damage on national credit, ratings, and international standing. 2. Reassessment of the Visa Waiver Program, ESTA. Under strict reciprocal application, Washington could initiate a comprehensive review or temporary suspension of the electronic system for travel authorization ESTA privileges enjoyed by South Korean nationals. Implementing heightened security vetting and administrative hurdles would significantly constrain standard travel and business mobility to the United States. 3. Diplomatic tit-for-tat. The U.S. administration may enforce targeted administrative retributions against high-ranking South Korean officials, diplomats, or influential figures aligned with the administration residing in the United States. Measures may include non-renewal of visas, rigorous legal scrutinization, or administrative delays upon departure, mirroring the restrictive actions experienced by U.S. personnel. Phase 2, targeted economic and commercial retaliation. Linking diplomatic grievances with economic statecraft, the United States possesses formidable statutory and regulatory instruments to inflict targeted financial disruption in response to perceived non-tariff barriers or regulatory discrimination against U.S. corporate entities. 1. Applicant of Section 301 trade actions. By categorizing discriminatory regulatory actions against U.S. firms such as Coupang as unfair trade practices, Under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, Washington can impose punitive tariffs on critical South Korean export commodities, including semiconductors, automotive products, and advanced energy storage systems. 2. Restriction of IRA and CHIPS Act subsidies. The administration can tighten regulatory compliance criteria or defer the disbursement of statutory subsidies and tax incentives previously promised to major South Korean conglomerates investing in U.S. manufacturing facilities under the Inflation Reduction Act. IRA and CHIPS Act, exerting acute fiscal pressure on key industrial conglomerates. 3. Financial monitoring and currency designation. The U.S. Department of the Treasury can leverage its monitoring mechanisms to place South Korea on currency manipulation, watch lists, or impose heightened regulatory scrutiny on bilateral financial transactions, triggering volatility in foreign exchange markets and equity indices. Phase 3, strategic isolation and defense architecture realignment. The most critical tier of coercive diplomacy involves realignments within regional security frameworks and intelligence sharing structures, fundamentally altering the security equilibrium of the Korean Peninsula. 1. Indefinite freezing of wartime operational control, OPCON transfer, and full autonomy of USFK. Even should a domestic administration advocate for rapid OPCON transition or force restructuring, Washington retains the capacity to unilaterally freeze the transfer process, utilizing perceived internal institutional vulnerabilities such as politicization of military command or degradation of unit readiness as formal justification. The U.S. may declare that host forces no longer maintain the operational capacity to lead combined defense operations. Furthermore, United States Forces Korea, USFK, could be repositioned as an autonomous forward base, focused primarily on broader regional containment, China, Russia, and North Korea, enforcing strategic flexibility to deploy assets into regional contingencies without prior host nation approval. 2. Exclusion from regional security architectures. Japan-centric alignment. In response to reluctance regarding trilateral coordination, Washington may pivot its Indo-Pacific strategy decisively toward the U.S. Japan Alliance, AUKUS, and the Quad Framework. Advanced military technology sharing, joint, anti-submarine warfare, and integrated missile defense architectures in surrounding maritime domains could be consolidated exclusively, with Japan isolating the host nation into a strategic perimeter. Secondary boycotts and targeted sanctions on regime entities. Should a host administration align closely with adversarial states, the Office of Foreign Assets Control OFAC can execute targeted financial sanctions. Any corporate entity, political actor, or partisan group engaging in financial transactions or sanction evasion. Schemes connected to foreign adversaries would face immediate inclusion under U.S. secondary boycotts, effectively disconnecting them from the global U.S. dollar clearing system, SWIFT. 4. Strategic intelligence denial and selective disclosures. In the domain of high-level intelligence, Washington can restrict access to critical satellite SIG-INT data regarding adversary military movements. Concurrently, sensitive intelligence detailing illicit transactions or non-public agreements between political figures and foreign governments could be declassified and disseminated to international media, directly challenging political legitimacy. In concluding this theoretical analysis, we must subject such diplomatic degradation and institutional myopia to the enduring moral and political wisdom of classical Eastern philosophy. As recorded in the wisdom of Mencius, Mingjia, Li Lo Shang, a state does not fall solely from external pressure. A state must first corrupt and defeat itself from within before external forces can ruin it.
国必自伐，而后人伐之。
Furthermore, the classical chronicle Zhuozhuan, Chuajun, acutely warns, one who repeatedly conducts unrighteous acts will inevitably bring about his own self-destruction.
多行不义必自累。
When statecraft abandons the foundational principles of justice, rule of law, and alliance trust under short-sighted political impulses, it invites self-inflicted strategic isolation. When leadership relies on arbitrary coercion rather than righteousness and international faith, no amount of domestic rhetoric can avert systemic collapse. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, share, and click like for more deep dive analyses on international relations and criminal political psychology.